Non-dual zombies like to say, oh, everything's happening by itself, it's all spontaneous. Sure, that's a very useful view to enact sometimes, but that could be a refuge for awakeness, a way to bypass so you don't put in the reps. Real transformation rarely happens alone. My first fitness coach showed me how the right feedback can reveal blind spots and accelerate progress. Years later, having a contemplative teacher told me the same thing applies to realization fitness. Both paths demand phenomenological honesty, precision, and literacy, the willingness to be measured and clearly perceive what is actually happening in your direct experience down to the T.
I'm OG, y'all new to the game.
The same way you count macros. In this video, I explored the importance of having a teacher or a coach, the solo realization trap, how to train intensively without resistance, receive feedbacks without defending an identity, but we insist so hard on proving ourselves right all the time.
Gotta show these haters what I got, man.
The virtue and the importance of failing forward, how no matter where you are on the journey, the best way to become stronger and wiser is to admit and accept that you are weak and ignorant. And at the end, I'll offer my initial thoughts on the movie.
So Frank, what do you think of the Odyssey?
Best depiction of the post-awakening journey I've ever seen.
He wins the war, but then he has to go home.
Over a decade ago, I achieved what I thought to be my near physical peak, all natty. And much of that transformation was initiated by JOH, aka john.Hollywood. He told me that lasting progress comes from structure, consistency, discipline, and most importantly, honesty and precision. Over the next decade, I counted every macro to the gram and weighed myself after I urinate every single morning down to the decimals. Then everything shifted. Since the Big Bang, I've continued training consistently, yes, yet my physical condition has improved exponentially, despite caring far less about my physique.
There will be a day when, even when you're working out, even when you're exerting, it makes the effort power. You feel no different than resting at home, on the couch, meditating, because you're always resting and recognizing.
I haven't tracked a single macro or weighed myself more than twice in the last 5 years. Because when you stop fabricating a separate, inherently existing entity, an enormous amount of energy becomes available. Today, me and Gibby are both very excited to work with John. It's her first time hiring a coach, counting macros, doing the daily weigh-ins, have a structured routine. Discovering her love for exertion carries over to her meditation training. In fact, a huge part of the reason why I'm doing this is so that I can do it with my partner. I'm bringing over a decade of contemplative practice into the process, even though I'm sending John macros and weigh-ins and a mood scale from 1 to 10 every single day. There is no resistance at all there, no suffering, no insistency on what my physique should look like, no craving to over or under eat.
Week 2 with the john.Hollywood program after 12 years.
How are you feeling?
Accentuating non-dual zombie mode, effortlessly.
So the goal isn't to stop exerting, it's to discover the middle way through neither resisting nor non-resisting. That which goes beyond the duality of effort and effortlessness by including both completely. I believe that I'll surpass my old physique.
I can do about twice as many sets as I used to. Before I lost the center, it became non-dual, non-local brah. Hell yeah! Week 3 of the john.Hollywood workout. Already making gains.
Recently, a friend and CC teammate John Lee worked on my body and described my direct experience.
This guy is so crazy. His body, he looks like buff dude full of muscle, but at the same time, he just feels like air. He's just like a hologram.
That pretty much captures the direction of realization fitness. Shout out to John for the free embodiment workshop. Several people say they've never been more absorbed in their lives. We're doing another one in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned.
I need more embodiment.
Anyway, back to the other John, Otis Hollywood. John was my first online bodybuilding coach. Even though I've been lifting for 13 years prior, I couldn't break through my plateaus until he taught me all these lessons, including the importance of having a teacher. Having someone who is further than you along on the path can really point out your blind spots, which then accelerates your progress and transformations exponentially with direct feedback loops. And this pointing out cannot be received if you're practicing alone. And this is the solo realizer trap. That's when I realized that the importance of having a coach isn't merely motivational. Sure, there's some of that, but is the willingness to be measured, the willingness to be weak, to be wrong and ignorant. So the paradox is, you cannot become stronger unless you admit to yourself fully and completely that you are weak. You cannot become smarter or more wise unless you admit and accept your ignorance.
I hate these squats.
See, one of the biggest and greatest afflictions in modernity is the fear to be wrong, to be judged. But we insist so hard on proving ourselves right all the time.
Gotta show these haters what I got, man.
And this insistency has to be renounced if you want to continue to evolve and to grow. And this applies even to advanced yogis, artists, and athletes at all levels, right? It's okay to be wrong. It's not about being right, actually. It's about being smart enough to recognize where you are wrong and be attached to neither insights nor ignorance. And Adyashanti also said that he failed at every method, every practice he tried until he let go of even letting go. If you look at self-inquiry, it's a pointing out in all the ways in which you are wrong, at least intellectually, until the mind just gives up, and then you receive the luminosity that's beyond but include concepts. In our community, we constantly encourage each other to fail forward. Michael Jordan famously said that he's failed over and over again, and that is how he succeeded. Fail forward and take ownership of it all. If you want to see through to your identity and to your sense of self, you have to first accept and reclaim every aspect of you, including the parts of you that are deemed to be stupid, worthless, guilty, shameful. Taking full ownership of every aspect of your being doesn't require self-view. It's an orientation, a posture towards resting and recognition. So you rest as the totality of your being and allow presence, that space-like nature of mind, to reveal itself. And through presence, you recognize how being unfolds as time. And this inseparable dance between presence and being discloses the geometry of this moment, the choreography of karmas, afflictions, and aggregations. This is just one way to slice reality, and you can get infinitely precise with how you perceive the architecture of the moment. And it's not linear, right? Because every constituent co-arises and conditions the others. There are loops within loops, fractals within fractals. Intention conditions name and form, which conditions the sixth sense sphere. The sixth sense sphere conditions contact, and contact conditions feeling tone. And how you respond to that feeling tone, whether that's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, tilts your attention, making certain features of experience, certain portions of it, more salient than others, right? And this conditions perceptions to differentiate, interpret, divide, and twist the field. We perceive what we conceive, and we conceive what we perceive.
OG, y'all new to the game.
And all this conditions and is conditioned by consciousness to split itself in particular configurations, which then in turn reconditions contact. The loop begins again, loops within loops, fractals within fractals. So our attention and even what becomes available for us to contact has already been conditioned, right? Experience is selective before the system consciously claims to have selected anything. And this is how holding patterns, karma, are conditioned and perpetuated through ignorance.
I'm OG, y'all new to the game.
Reinforced over and over, these loops solidify, calcify, and ossify into what appears to be a separate entity, and the same pattern is then projected onto all phenomenons. If you perceive a cub as truly existing, self-view is already present.
With that beautiful girl.
This is how we compound phenomenons volitionally to remain separate, how we twist the field into a self-view. Most people only associate the self or identities with, mental and verbal fabrication. But thoughts are just the tip of the iceberg. They're a tiny slither in experience that trickles down from view, the concavity that you called my reality. You can train the mind to be subtle enough to recognize exactly how each thought is conditioned. Without illuminating this, these thought loops will continuously arise. You can do the inquiry, like, oh, it's just a thought all day long, for years. But these patterns of proliferations will continue to manifest. So the goal is never to get rid of thought or self, it's to see through them. Now, this is the degree of precision necessary for liberation, right? Even after you saw through the self, conditioned phenomenons continue to compound without an individual carrier from one moment to the next. The momentum remains. Karmas continue to unfold. How does that happen? And this is why sometimes people see through the self, yet all the conditions are still there. The momentum, the volitional formation are still perpetuating their being towards directions in which, might not be so virtuous. Non-dual zombies like to say, oh, everything's happening by itself, but that could be a refuge for our vagueness. hiding behind the mystery. Sometimes this vagueness is simply a bypass for those who are refusing to put in the reps or don't want to admit that they might be wrong. Are you sure you are at the level of attainment or awakening that you think you are? So to illuminate the subtlest layers of the mind and being, one must be phenomenologically precise, honest, and literate. Each depends on the others. Literacy gives you the framework to describe experiences before reducing it to a conclusion. Instead of just saying, I am hungry or horny, what is the texture and the quality and the shape of each experience? Check out the slides shown here for examples of this. Precision allows you to detect the subtlest textures of grasping before they give birth to the next cycle of becoming. And honesty keeps you from denying or distorting what you see. I'm not just talking about honesty on a conceptual level, but can you feel first, completely, and interpret later? The more precise you recognize experience, the harder it becomes to hide from it. And the more honest you become, the more precise you can see. Check out the slides put together by the Contemplative CrossFit Yogic Philosophy team. It's mind-boggling how nuanced it is. It's almost impossible to fully conceive of this if you aren't experiencing reality as a four-dimensional donut and beyond. When I say perception or your sixth sense sphere is panoramic, spatially, yes, but it's also panoramic temporally, where the present contains the future and the past contains the future and the present. Space and time is a single fabric, making mind and reality a hypertorus eating itself. If ignorance conditions suffering, then whatever we ignore, right, ignorance, or are unconscious of, becomes the basis for every split that we create. Mind, body, subject, object, past, future, present, purity, impurity, and etc. The type of yogic intelligence that is displayed here is more like music or architecture or 360 videos than conceptual philosophy, and it can be experienced directly. So come and find out for yourself. In the next 4 weeks, we are opening up our calendar for free one-on-one coaching calls. If you know someone who is stuck on the path currently in his or her meditation, despite great efforts and dedication, or someone who is deeply committed to realizing the nature of mind, we would love to help them make the progress and make the leap into the contemplative journey. The map is not the territory, but on the time of the path, it is crucial to take reality apart so you can deconstruct your suffering to just rest as an ongoing cessation that manifests all of appearances. And then you are free to construct your own meaning, and the way you aggregate becomes the art of your life. In athletic, music, and just about every other endeavors in life, we understand the importance of measurement, precision, and honest feedback. Yet in meditation, we somehow imagine these principles no longer apply. One of my violin teachers said, the degree of precision in playing the violin is akin to performing a brain surgery or flying an F-16 jet plane. You have no choice but to be honest. If you play a wrong note, you play the wrong note. And the difference between a right note and a wrong note is less than 1 millimeter when you're in the high positions.
Nowhere in this fingerboard here that tells you where the notes are. And each time you shift, it's another whole different set of fingerings. 10 different keyboards that you have to,
The reason why I'm so drawn to the pedagogical precision offering CC is because you cannot learn the violin without pedagogy. And even when I'm editing videos, each frame counts. And here's the paradox. The more precise you can recognize the finite, the more fully you can open to the equality of infinity. It is only through the finite that the infinite can recognize itself. And with the collapse of the two truths, the ultimate and the relative, arises skillful means and conduct. And this is something that we constantly emphasize in the CC Bootcamp, where mind training is life training and life is relationships. See, many practitioners spend years, even decades, wasting their potentials because they're trying to complete the path alone. They believe that they've already possessed the right insights or confirm or doubt their own biases inside their own heads, their own echo chamber, right? Like a snake eating its own tail. And this is one reason why people remain trapped in non-dual zombie land for so long. Now, if you practice through the wrong view, even apparent progress merely reinforces that view. Trapped in an extreme of eternalism, we crave existence by endlessly trying to expand consciousness, sometimes through increasingly reckless psychedelic use. Trapped in the opposite extreme, craving for non-existence, we attempt to annihilate the self and fall into nihilism. But conditioned existence cannot cease through more conditioning aimed to destroy it. See, no Olympic athletes train without coaches or teammates. You cannot master the violin or anything else without teachers, mentors, direct feedback loops. We understand the importance of measurement in all these other endeavors, but for some reason we think the contemplative path is different. Even though ultimately you're not the one who's getting liberated, a complete realization requires one to train like an Olympian. This is something that's capable of reshaping your entire reality, shattering your whole world. So meditation too is a team sport. Transmission is a spatial temporal co-creative orchestration. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Even solo realizers depend on the teachings of others. Lineages that stretches forward and backwards into lifetimes and lifetimes of compassion and wisdom.
Not that bad.
And going alone into a cave already presupposes the others you're attempting to renounce. And you might say, oh, I've seen people that have awakened alone, right? Even if your karma is ripe, or if you're insane enough to break through to anatta realization alone, that is just the beginning. Nothing in nature exists alone. Self-emptiness reveals that there is nothing but relationships. It is precisely because neither you nor I possesses inherent existence that we can manifest each other. And what happens after the victory, right? Like the Odyssey, you still have to find your way back home. And Odysseus had a lot of support. Even after you arrived home and realized you've never actually gone anywhere, there's still taxes to pay, relationships to tend to, work to finish, and trash to take out. That's your carrying water, chopping wood in modernity. If you can't take on samsara without suffering, there's still no fruit, right? This is why ultimately the fruit and the path becomes inseparable. This is why people can cocoon themselves continuously, creating that divide between on and off the coaching training. Spiritual practice is here, the rest of the light over there. And the limit of solo realization bubble is apparent when you start to realize that you might be constantly reenacting the conditioning that supports your nirvana. What about other sentient beings? The rest of the training ground is samsara, which is inseparable from nirvana, but if you prematurely say that, you're bypassing. It is only through relating can the rest of your afflictions be highlighted.
That's the affliction, right? That's the insistence right now.
You may say, oh, I've attended retreats. Non-dual zombies can gather to feast too, bro. There's nothing inherently wrong with retreats. I've benefited enormously from them. But even a highly realized teacher cannot necessarily identify your blind spots and prescribe the right practice after speaking with you for 5 minutes a day, if you're lucky enough to ask a question. Every being carries particular karmic patterns and loops that can only be teased out through sustained relationships. This is why the CC team and we don't feel comfortable giving you any advice until we've actually sat down with you. We would love to learn something from you too. The degree of subtlety, attention to detail, and genuine care demonstrated by the CC mentors constantly blows my mind. They help practitioners recognize the smallest movement of grasping and views and blind spots that are nearly impossible to detect alone. And they're on call 24/7. So in our free one-on-one coaching, we aim to meet each practitioner exactly where they are and clarify what their practice needs now. Here's what happens in these 20-minute consultation calls. Step 1, we map out your practice. Together, we capture the big picture of all the work you've been doing. Step 2, we identify the bottleneck, where and why you are stuck. As I said before, you cannot see your own view because it's literally your entire reality. Finding a blind spot can take people years to figure out on their own. Together, we leave with a clear picture of where you are. If appropriate, we would like to introduce you to the CC 90-day bootcamp. Our container is designed for self-emptiness realization and beyond.
So Frank, what do you think of the Odyssey?
I still have tears coming out. But I think this is the best depiction of the post-awakening journey I've ever seen, depicted in any art form.
He wins the war, but then he has to fucking go home.
Exactly. When you open the gate of Troy, that's your first awakening. When you have your first opening, there's a lot of bliss, all your shadows gonna come out.
Yeah, it's gonna be bliss because it's like, we're winning the war. And then it's also
but it's also bloodshed too. And paying homage to all of your karmic depths. You have to face all of your shadows. Every single aspect of your being has to be reclaimed. And then taking ownership of it all without a self to blame or to defend. And you have to make right. You have to pay all your karmic debt with all the people that I've heard.
What do you think of the movie, Jeff?
To pay homage to all of your afflictions, like ghosts, right? It still have to be faced. Then the debris that you still have to purify. There are parts of you that you have to let go of. You have to just let them rest. Okay, they're ready to die. 500, however, 3,000 minutes of Odysseus, they're just the subsets of his minds that
his crew is his karma that needs to be.
Yes, they're just all you, quote unquote, but it's also inseparable from them. And the gods have to be obeyed, but at the same time, you have to transcend them. Calypso, okay, she fed him lotus to ease your awakening.